Communication Management Alumni Speaker Panel. My name is Tiffany Madden. I am the new Alumni Career Counselor here at Annenberg. I've only been here since December, and this is my first event. I'm so excited to have this group of people here to share their knowledge and wisdom with you. Dr. Rebecca Weintraub is going to be leading the discussion. The way the format is going to go, it's going to be about 45 minutes of Rebecca leading the panel in Q&A, and then we're going to open it up to you guys to ask the questions that you're most curious about for the group, and then maybe if there's a few minutes left. But we are cognizant that you need to get to class, so we're going to try to wrap things up at around 6:30. So thank you. I first want to thank the panelists really quickly. Thank you so much for coming. I want to take a moment to thank you, the moderator, for being here. And
on a night when she didn't have to be here. Then.
And I want to thank you guys for attending as well. I think this is so important for you to just really soak up this kind of knowledge. Also, one last point of note, each of you received an evaluation. It's really important for you to please fill those out and either leave them on your chair or turn them in on your way out. That's very important for us. So thank you so much.
So I want to welcome everybody. I see a lot of very familiar faces. I'm the director of the Communication Management Master's Program, both the online and the on-campus program. I have 2 show-ups and 1 not yet graduates of the program on the panel, which is very exciting for me. And then a graduate of our online, the APOC program, which is now called the Masters of Digital Social Media, and a graduate from the undergraduate program who clearly needs to come back and get a master's degree. I'm going to introduce them each very briefly, and although I've got all sorts of biographical information here, I think it'll be a lot more interesting if they tell you a little bit about their journey. So beginning on my far right is Eric Rothmeyer. Did I pronounce that almost right?
Almost right.
Okay.
Almost right.
Will you correct me, please?
Rothmeyer.
Oh, that I is supposed to be pronounced. Who is digital media manager and event producer in online marketing at Planet LA Records. He is our graduate of the Annenberg program in online communities, which is now the digital social media master's degree. Next to him is Heather Rim, a graduate of the comm management program a while ago. Well, I say that because she's vice president of global corporate communication at Avery Dennison, and I don't want you to think that's your first job coming right out of the master's program. Heather graduated in 2003, and the reason I remember that is that that was the graduation ceremony where I was wearing my commencement regalia and my hat over my wig because I was going through chemo. And so I may not remember when anybody else graduates, but I remember when Heather did. Next to Heather is Uditha Srimushnam. I pronounced the last name correctly, but I always screw up the first. Uditha is a graduate of the Communication Management Master's Program. Her claim to comm management fame is I had the opportunity to find an intern to go to Yellowstone National Park and work on winter use between May and December. And Uditha, who had rarely seen snow and had never met a bison, and didn't know that they're not called buffalo, was dropped in the middle of Wyoming/Montana. And had an amazing experience, and she's going to tell you more about that. To my left is, another one I'm going to ruin, Erin Yokomizo.
Yeah, perfect.
Who is a communication association, the LA County Museum of Art, which I think is extremely cool. My mother was a docent there for almost 30 years. And it's a very special place to be. Erin's the one that's going to come back and go to the Communication Management Master's Program. But I would ask each of you to tell a little bit more of the biographical information that you have here, and one unexpected value or advantage or good thing that that came about from your work here at Annenberg in terms of your career that maybe was a little unexpected. So Eric, would you start?
Sure. So I think one of the things that was unexpected but a really good value for me coming here to Annenberg was the value of working in cross-disciplinary teams. So within the APOC program, you are paired up over different courses and different projects, and you work with people throughout the program. And then moving beyond APOC and taking classes at Marshall with new product development, and then going to the cinema school and taking classes with the cinema students. I was able to get a very well-rounded experience working in a cross-disciplinary teams, both within Annenberg and then USC community overall.
And you're a little bit about your career?
So my role at Planet Elliott Records is managing their digital and social media presence. I'm the one behind the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram, and I'm putting posts together, finding hashtags, coordinating distribution of digital assets, and then going back to our brands and our stakeholders and artists and saying, okay, here's what kind of engagement we got. You know, this is what happened during our last pre-Grammy party.
Cool. Heather, so a little bit about your career, and then what was sort of the unexpected value that you didn't know was going to happen?
So my career's been a little bizarre. I did a ton of internships in undergrad. I did not go to USC, although I wish I had. But I wanted to get out of school early, and I wanted to start working because I was so excited to, be in the job market. So I did an internship at a car wash and, helped them with their marketing, and I did all sorts of things. So when I graduated, I had this really incredible resume that I had kind of created to look like, I had 4 years of job experience. So I was lucky enough, my first job was at KPMG, downtown LA. I was a marketing coordinator, and the best part of it was we were in an office that had a ton of space. So my first office was a corner office on like the 17th floor with all of these beautiful windows. I had 2 seats, chairs, and actually,
it's all downhill from
now,
there.
I gotta tell you, I'm actually sitting in a cubicle now, which I think is our open office environment. Even our CEO sits in a cubicle. So from KPMG, I went to a company called WellPoint, which is now Anthem Blue Cross, and I was there for 5 years. And actually, there was a little stop, a few years at Bank of America. At the time, it was Countrywide. I kind of started my career in marketing. And what was interesting, I got a call from, when I was at Countrywide, I'll just real quickly, I helped them take their paper-based marketing materials and move them online, which was a really big deal at the time. And it was just basically like a database of PDF files. But at the time, there was no such thing as intranets. And I got this phone call from WellPoint, and they said, hey, we want to build something called an intranet, and we hear you have experience doing that. And I went, yeah, I do. So I got this great job working there, and ended up going from, I was part of the corporate communications team. At the time, I really didn't know what corp comm was. Got an opportunity to go to grad school, met Rebecca, realized that this was a thing, this was a real career. And then I went to Disney for 5 years, and also in corporate communications. And I've been at Avery Dennison, actually just got my 5-year anniversary plaque today. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey. I think for comm management, it's funny, I was really kind of more of an individual contributor, I would say, in terms of where I was at in my career when I enrolled in this program. And I remember there were so many of these team projects, and I would just think, oh my God, not another team project. I have to collaborate with people. I would just, I'll just do it myself and turn it in. I'd be so frustrated. And I gotta say, I can't think of a project that I work on today that doesn't involve a massive team, a global team. I lead a team of about 20 folks in Wind and Bar. team members is over here today, which is fantastic. So anyways, the gift of learning to collaborate as part of a team was huge for me and unexpected. So.
Yeah. Udita?
Yes, so a little bit about my career. I also did not go to undergraduate. I didn't get my undergraduate degree here.
Oh, it's worse. She went to UCLA.
I did. I did that thing. That's a thing I did, yes. And then after that, I, right out of college, moved to India and worked there for 2 years at a manufacturing firm, sort of doing a bunch of their communication stuff. And as luck would have it, helped them build their first intranet as well. And then came back and knew that I left India because I felt like I had tapped out everything I could figure out on my own. That I could teach myself about communication without being formally trained in it. And so I came back very much with the intent of going back to school, ended up here. And from that, took a bunch of classes that I really loved, and as Dr. Weintraub mentioned, had an opportunity to go work for the National Park Service for quite a while. And did that, and that work sort of directly led to where I am now, which is at a firm called Raleigh in Hollywood. And we do sort of the intersection of public affairs and public relations and advertising for social good causes specifically, and we can talk about that later.
And the unexpected part, other than bison?
Other than bison, which I could tell you all kinds of unexpected things about bison and moose, but what I can also tell you is that I think the best thing that came out of grad school for me was that I came in 100% sure what I wanted to do. I knew exactly what I was going to do when I got out of grad school. I knew exactly what classes I was going to take to get me there. But I was encouraged to have an open mind about opportunities that were unexpected, and going to Yellowstone and doing public policy work for the first time completely changed my career trajectory and made me move in a very different direction. So I think having the opportunity to explore with lots of bright people who were also really curious was the best thing I got out of being here.
Great.
Well, my name is Erin. Nice to meet you all and see you all. I do not have my master's degree, but I do have my, in pursuit. But I do have my bachelor's degree from communications here. I graduated in 2009. And unlike you, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that my passion was art history, and I knew that I love museums. But I think finding a way to make a career out of that was something that was very daunting to me. But I kind of thought of communications as a background to kind of explore that passion, because I don't think I could pursue a doctorate in art history. I don't think I could be a scholar. But communications was something that was interesting to me, and it was something that I could see myself being good at. So that was kind of, it's kind of a perfect hybrid, being at LACMA in the communications department there at a museum.
So what's been unexpected in your career
Sure.
that relates back to to school in some manner, shape, way, or form?
I remember taking a basic communications 200 course here with Ken Sereno, and there was a lesson on persuasion, and I think that was something, I remember one of the required reading books was by an author named Cialdini, and it's very basic.
A lot of them have read Cialdini.
Right? And it's funny because I went on this retreat, and it was completely unrelated to school or communications, but I brought it out because I needed to read it, and she said, "Is that Cialdini?" And I was like, "Yes." How do you know who Cialdini is? But yeah, I think it applies to fields across the board, not just specifically communications. And I find myself applying persuasion to my everyday life in communications at a museum, of all places. So I think to be persuasive in the message that you're carrying, and to convince people why they want to be at a museum or what you're trying to promote. So, yeah.
Come on.
Sorry, I'm late. The new building's beautiful, by the way.
Were you waiting in 207 over there?
I mean, I was just in the wrong building, but it's gorgeous and didn't exist when I was here, so it was
True
great.
that.
So I apologize for being late. Thank you.
So allow me to introduce Claudine Kasian, who is currently the vice president. I've lost your page.
Vice President of Programming, yes.
Of Programming and Branded Entertainment for iHeartMedia. She's the only person I know who knows Ryan Seacrest. As far as I'm concerned, that's a proof that she has succeeded. Heather pointed out that she and Claudine were in my strategic corporate communication class at the same time. Clearly a brilliant class.
And in the same study groups. I know. We braved it together.
Yes, and lived to tell the tale.
Yes.
Claudine, what I've asked people to say, I'll give you a second to catch your breath,
Great.
is give a little bit of your background and how you got
Sure.
to be where you are, and then something unexpected about your career out of grad school that was kind of a surprise.
Okay, great. So again, great to see you guys. Thank you for having me tonight. So I'll tell you a little bit a story of the day that I left grad school. I had been working at a radio station here in Los Angeles, and I was doing a marketing job from 9 to 5. And at the time, there was a budding young DJ by the name of Ryan Seacrest who had a show from 3 to 7 p.m. And at the time, he wasn't famous. Nobody knew who he was. We don't tell him that. But I was volunteering. Prior to going to grad school, I used to volunteer from 5 to 7 for free on his show just to learn how to be a producer. So I did that for a couple of years, and I decided I wanted to go on grad school, braved through the program and her class especially. I will say I still have some battle scars, but they are good ones, and they made me stronger. So when I graduated from graduate school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a job. I was in debt. I was living at home. So I called Ryan Seacrest, and I said, I hear you're looking for a producer. I'd really love to work for you. And he came in for an interview and everything, and he said to me, you're fantastic, Claudine, and I love your work ethic. You're so great, but you're really green, and I need somebody who's not green. And I love that you volunteered to work with me, then you went to graduate school, and you have this amazing background, but you're a little too green. He ended up hiring someone, firing them 8 weeks later. He called me. He said, are you still working? Are you still looking for a job living at home and in debt?
Are you still green?
Yeah. I said yes, and yes, sadly, but it's the truth. He said, okay, I'm going to give you 5 weeks. And if after 5 weeks you do it well, you'll be my producer. And that was 15 years ago. And so I then went on to work with him in multiple capacities. We launched radio shows, TV shows, some which succeeded, some which failed. And so that was an unexpected twist for me. The one thing that he always appreciated, I think, was my work ethic, but also he really appreciated that I went to graduate school and kind of took that extra step that in our business and entertainment you don't necessarily need per se, but it gave my story, if you will, a little bit of a different edge. And because of that, I think that it was an amazing foundation for everything that was yet to come that I didn't know was yet to come. And so that was unexpected for me. So it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
It is. See? And the debt that keeps on not going away.
Yeah.
No, when you're done with 10 years or something. So you all talked a little bit about your career path and what got you there, but we've got a lot of people here who are going to be, how many of you will have your first full-time job after graduation? Raise your hands high. So my question to all of you is, what can students expect from their first job? Not their ultimate job. So we've got people here who have been out for a while, are not in their first job. But what can you expect from your first job? What's reasonable? What's unreasonable? What are the critical success factors? So who would like to begin?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think the most important thing in getting your first job is learning how to say yes, how to listen, how to be professional, and regardless of what others are doing. Kind of forge your own way in a way that's professional and polished, whether that's emails, how you answer the phone, how you ask if the different executives in the company need anything. Just constantly have your game face on because it is a place of work. I think that I see that transition sometimes being hard for a lot of young people. They think it's, these are my friends, and this is
this is an exciting place and we'll go out, but really it's a place of business. And I think when you are detail oriented, you ask the right questions, you show up on time, ready to go, ready to work, willing to do whatever is asked of you with enthusiasm and efficiency, it really does go a long way. I think the thing that's most important is consistency, because I think that's where people tend to fail. They might be really, really good in the beginning and then drop off. So consistency for me is a #1 factor.
I was just about to ask you, Heather, to answer that with a slightly different twist, because you hire people into their first jobs. What's the difference between somebody who's going to make it and who isn't? And before you say that, I want everybody to notice that these were made by Avery Dennison.
Thank you. Hunger, for sure. Hunger, enthusiasm, a willingness to learn. Claudine mentioned, the ability to say yes, even when you're terrified inside. Yes, and I'm going to look into that and get back to you with a recommendation, and really tapping into your network of mentors and people. I think also coming into a role and being completely open and flexible and nimble, because I can tell you I am in a I never imagined I'd be in this role here today. I didn't know that this job existed. I thought I was going to be in marketing and advertising, and I'm in this world that I didn't know existed. So I think having an open mind and building relationships with people. The last thing I would say, learn the business. That's so critical. That is the quickest way to gain credibility in an organization, and not feeling like, if you're sitting in a meeting, I love to bring our interns into business discussions to get them exposed to the business, to give them opportunities to learn, but I'm not expecting to put that person on the spot and ask them, well, what would you do in this situation? I really want them to learn and be a sponge. And I actually remember earlier in my career, I was, I got this opportunity. I was, in a junior role. My boss brought me into this big meeting, and there were lots of executives there. And someone asked a question, and I answered it, and I was so proud of myself and excited. And my boss looked at me like, "Oh my God," it totally embarrassed me. So I think don't feel like you have to have the answers. Just learn, be a sponge, because your moment will come for sure. So.
Eric,
I think one of the things to expect from your first job is that you're going to be in a position where you don't necessarily know something and you need to ask questions, and you can't be afraid to ask questions. You have to, if you don't know something, you need to figure it out. You need to find it out from the person who can tell you. And there will be some environments you work in where the culture isn't as forthcoming. They don't tell you what you need to know, so you have to go and ask. Or you'll come into an environment where they'll say to you, ask us questions, ask us anything, ask us anytime. And that is a really great environment to be in, just because you can really learn from their experience. You can absorb a lot of knowledge in an environment where people are so open and forthcoming about, oh, here's how we do it this way, or, we need to have the email be processed through on this list. You have to hit BCC, and just ask the questions to get the information you need to really put in a good effort with your team and to show that you're engaged. If you sit back and you don't ask questions, people will kind of look at you and be like, okay, well, I guess they know what they're doing, or they don't. And there won't always be people at the top who will, reach out to you and say, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? They'll just assume that you're running okay. So ask questions. If you run into trouble, ask for help, and don't be afraid to ask.
Erin?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Eric was saying. In preparation of this panel, I actually kept a journal, a work journal dedicated specifically for work, and I wrote in it the first year I started, and I'm writing in it today. But I started reviewing some of the entries, and it's funny to me because each of the entries from that first year of my job was, I hate this, what did I do wrong, why am I not getting better? And I think it's frustrating that first year because I can remember, I'm not a crier, but I remember coming home in tears once because it was just frustrating not getting something quickly, you know, and I think communication seems like something so basic and straightforward, you know, it's talking, it's getting a message across. But I think the nuances, like the BCC thing on an email, it's simple, but it's part of a work culture. And I think I remember turning in my first draft of a press release to my boss, and it was just red with markups. And I think she kept it like the and as, and the rest were like completely different words. But slowly, these journal entries that I was reviewing changed over time, and it was, today was not so bad, and it was, you know, today was awesome. And I think it's osmosis. Slowly, it's a process. And you get better little bit by bit, and then one day you wake up and you're like, hey, I knew a lot more than I did a year ago. Hey, I mean, I'm surprised I'm on a panel. I really couldn't tell you why I'm here. I mean, I feel like I should be sitting there, but I think just be prepared to make mistakes, but have that kind of resilience to come back and to learn from your mistakes, to be better for the mistakes, and yeah, keep going.
I like that. I love the idea of keeping a work journal.
Great.
I think that is really a great idea. Everybody write that down. What do you think?
Well, I'm in my first job out of graduate school, so I'm fairly close to that experience. And here are some things I can tell you. Expect to be nervous and scared that you are going to be asked to do things that you don't know how to do. And that's where asking for help comes in. That's where going back and sitting at your desk and taking a beat and thinking through, start to finish, how am I going to approach this? What are the steps? What am I going to do? Where am I going to hit the roadblocks? And waiting until you've thought that through to go ask your good questions so that you really are asking for help where you need it on the things that you can't figure out on your own. I think that's really important. I also keep a work journal, and mine sort of...
Who knew?
I do, and mine sort of looks like, here are 5 things that happened today. Here's what I think I did well. Here's what made me want to crawl under my desk, and here's what I learned from that, right? And I make sure to sort of write down, here's what I learned from that, because that's the stuff that you want to carry forward with you. Every time a step in the right direction counts as progress. And so if you are learning something and you've done something better than you did it last time, you're doing a great job. And then the last thing I would say about that is Dr. Weintraub and I have talked about this somewhat since I got out of grad school. Grad school is a really protected environment. Your classmates are here to support you and work with you and help you be better. Your teachers are available to teach you all the time, and that's their primary job here. And a workplace is a place of business. People are there because they have things they need to get done. And so I think if you come in with the attitude that you're going to learn, you're always going to say yes, and you're going to stay focused on doing good quality work and not be distracted by what other people are doing, or not be distracted by office politics or things that you might not be able to wrap your mind around. Ultimately, the work is what's going to speak for you. So if you're doing really consistent, high-quality work, you'll get where you want to go.
So all of our students here know about internships. They're all doing internships if they're not working full-time. So other than internships, what are the things that they should be thinking about and doing? Are there organizations that they should belong to? What kind of, what are the things that they should be doing? So I'll ask you each for one or two, but separate from internships, because they know about internships.
Right.
Claudia.
I think
Claudine,
the
sorry.
most important thing, just one quick point that I want to make, that a great thing to do the first day you start a job, it's very practical, is ask for the org chart. See who's who in the company, right? So you know who's doing what, and then when you're there, this leads to my next point, do informational meetings. You can do that inside a company, or you can do it from the outside of a company. And I think that would be my number one tip outside of an internship. I had 2 informational meetings earlier today with people who said, hey, I'll bring you coffee. I just need 25 minutes. Can I come talk to you? And they had their questions ready to go, and it was very efficient, and they got a lot out of it. You can do that inside a company or outside a company. So I think when you don't have the job, do as many informational meetings as possible. People love coffee and they love to talk about themselves. So there you go. And if you're inside a company, get the org chart and go to people's offices and say, I'd like to learn more about what it is you do inside this organization. That people love that. And it's very informative.
I think that's a great one. Erin?
If I can't say internships.
You can't say internships.
I think there is a mentorship program here at Annenberg, and that might be cheating because it is Annenberg, but I didn't know it existed. I sorry to say, but it was a great opportunity to, I think, I came in
You've
from...
been a mentor, right?
Yes, and I think that's how I landed here tonight, but it's a really well-organized program, I have to say, and I think that it's a great way to, kind of what you alluded to, form relationships and network. And I know that people tell you again and again that networking is so key, but it really is. And I think to get somebody who's in the business or in the industry that you're hoping to be a part of, and those people may have contacts, and maybe what they're doing isn't exactly what you want to do, but they know somebody who has a job that's exactly what you want to do, and they can connect you. If it's coffee, that's great. If it's, just popping in for 10 minutes, that's great too. But I think that's what gets you that kind of insider scoop and those insider relationships, because trust me, you'll circle back to those same people again, and they'll be very, very helpful to you in the future.
Eric?
So beyond what you're doing here and beyond internships, I'll speak for the digital and social media space since that's my focus. You want to be getting out to events, and there's a few organizations around Los Angeles. One is called Digital LA. It's run by a man named Kevin Winston. He is very well connected to a lot of people in the tech, startup, and entrepreneurship scenes. So if getting a job in those fields is something that you have your sights on, definitely make it out to Digital LA events. He has them every month, and it usually brings in a big mix of people from different areas of the industry, from Fox, from Sony, from DreamWorks, from smaller businesses. And the job I have with Planet LA Records actually came about because I went to a startup showcase. It was this kind of like fashion-centric. They had runway models doing startup fashion, and Kevin introduced me to my boss, Mark. And Mark and I were chatting, and Mark was like, "Oh, hey, we've got this pre-Grammy party we're doing next year. We could really use some social media help. Do you want to come on board?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." It's like, how many people can come out of grad school and be like, "Yeah, I'm working on a pre-Grammy party." So getting involved with those organizations. Another good org to get involved with is Social Media Club LA. That's actually one that I currently serve on the board. And we also do monthly events where we tackle topics around social media. We just had one last Tuesday on the power of real-time social media during awards season. And we had a panel of professionals who came and spoke about what platforms they found most effective to reach out to audiences during award season, during Emmys, during Oscars, Golden Globes. And yeah, so getting involved with organizations to get that networking, to get those connections, and to be in that field where you're surrounded by people who are, probably much smarter than you, also have different skill sets, have lots of different connections, and you have a relation with them. Like you're professionals in an industry, and that's just a great way to make network connections and just meet other people, so you're not like the only social media person doing your thing. You meet other social media managers, you can trade tips and tricks, and just kind of hear the industry chatter between each other.
Heather?
I would say really think about your personal brand. I think there should be a class on personal branding, maybe there is, but it's so important.
Talk to the 501 students who can all tell you their personal brand elevator speech.
Excellent. And as you think about your personal brand, then do an audit of your social media presence.
Right.
Because you may have your elevator speech down and then you are tweeting all kinds of crazy stuff, or your LinkedIn profile looks pathetic, or you've got a Facebook page that is a disaster. So you have to think, everything will follow you as your resume it's not a standalone communication tool. It's all the pieces that come together to form who you are from an employer's perspective. So I think even, more so than joining an organization, I think that's the first step, is to really, paint that picture of who you are, what your values are, what you stand for, and what you want to do with your career. So,
great point.
I like that, a social media audit. I think I'm going to tell my grandkids that one. Uditha.
Because we look.
We do.
At everything.
We do.
Everything. And we don't go back a week. We go back far.
And it doesn't disappear.
It doesn't disappear.
Snapchat you took?
Yeah.
It's still out there.
There's a lot of worried faces in the room right now. Uditha.
I would say you can grow your network where you are. I think that there's a sense sometimes that if you're a student or you're in school, everybody else has figured out something that you haven't yet, and everybody else has got a job, and you have to be finding people out in the world. And you should, and you do. Go find people in the world. But also recognize that some of the people that you are going to know throughout your career are in this room with you right now. And a lot of times, those relationships that are built out of something valuable, I mean, these two, the second they walked in, they were so excited to see each other, right? And it's because they survived Dr. Weintraub's class together.
Yes.
I still regularly go out to drinks with people that I survived Dr. Weintraub's class with. And
It's a cult.
Tammy Bauman got me my first sort of contract gig
That's
right out of grad school. So recognize that your classmates, your professors, the people that you spend time with now are also really valuable relationships, and they don't have to be sitting in the C-suite for you to be able to really help each other. Also recognize that building your network is not just about what you can get from it. I think that's a really, we talk so much about networking, and we think so much about how can I find the next thing, where can I find the next thing. Recognize that being giving is going to be the thing that's going to open a lot of doors for you also. And you have valuable things in your pocket now, even if it doesn't feel that way.
I'm going to answer my own question. And I'm going to use Uditha as an example because I think it's something that you all don't necessarily think about. So not only did I drop Uditha at the National Park Service, but a fellowship came across my desk. And one of the things I know about Uditha, because she was in my class, and she would come and talk with me, is that she's an extremely good strategic thinker. She's a good natural strategic thinker. And this was a fellowship at a strategic advocacy firm. And it wasn't a full-time job, but it was a paid being a nominal term here, fellowship for 3 months. And before I sent it off to the career services, I did what I always do, which is I looked through the students that I thought had some particular capacity, and I sent it to Uditha. And after a month, they offered her a full-time job. Now, I say that because your faculty have a lot of connections and networks and hidden opportunities that you may not know about. And so making sure that you stay connected with your faculty and have an opportunity to demonstrate what you can do. One of the things that I will say about Heather and about Claudine and about Uditha, and the reason I remember them from classes, is they asked really smart questions. And you can learn a lot from people by the questions that they ask and the depth of thought. And that is part of that process. Because when you are capable of doing that in class, guess what you're going to do when you have an interview,
right,
or you have an opportunity to talk to people and such. And so to give you all the opportunity to demonstrate your intelligence. This is your opportunity to ask smart questions. So, with that as the challenge, who would like to begin?
There's someone over there.
I'm hiding in the corner.
Okay. And then
Herman, hi. So I guess one thing that maybe you guys can provide some insight to. So I'm in my first, I guess, real job. I work at a tech startup. And one thing that is challenging is that we don't really have an organizational culture yet.
Right.
We're all 40 of us are in the process of creating it. And one thing that I've been struggling with is figuring out how to define my worth and show my capability without being annoyingly ambitious. So I don't know if any of you have gone through that, because I don't want to be the person who's like, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And they're like, okay, sit down. Right. But also being able to communicate value and worth. So I don't know if any of you have been in a situation where you don't know.
Are you kidding? We got a whole table full of overachievers here.
Look, at the beginning of my career, I was in startup land. I remember the day Ryan became famous. So everything after that, from the week before, he wasn't famous. And then a week later, I was walking with him, he was famous. Every piece of incoming business that came after that, we didn't have people. We didn't have structure. We didn't have anything. So I understand that feeling. I think something that's really good to do is, going back to what Heather said, continue to define your personal brand in the organization, and whoever you're reporting to, there must be someone you're reporting to, right? Maybe put it on the books like every 6 months, do a check-in, every 4 to 6 months, do a check-in with that individual. And also, too, something that I think is really helpful because everybody's moving so fast, especially in a tech startup, is I love it when at the end of the week or every 2 weeks, the people on my team who will just send me like an update sheet, like this is what I was able to get done, and not a monologue, like bullet points, and just brief. This. And don't feel like you have to fill the email, just with key things that you got done or that you were proud of accomplishing. Hey, just wanted to keep you looped in. This got done this week. Please let me know if you have any questions. That's continuing to show how you're growing in your job and in your space.
I'd also say one way to think about that is, so I don't think there is such a thing as annoyingly ambitious. I really don't. I think if you're smart and capable, then you're smart and capable. Mm-hmm. The question becomes, are you trying to demonstrate what you can do, or are you trying to meet somebody else's need? And I think that's the difference, is if you are being really thoughtful about what the people you are reporting to need, and you are being thoughtful about how you are anticipating and meeting those needs, then you're not annoying at anything. You're the person they can't get rid of. You're the person they can't live without. So I would encourage you to think about it that way. And if you're doing that, then you are demonstrating what you can do by meeting what they need.
Just building on that quickly, I would say, look at the company and think about how you can add the greatest value to that business. So, what's your focus? I would really focus in on, again, what you want to be known for, where you can add the greatest value, and then all the other pieces and parts, as Claudia mentioned, that, you send in the quick bulleted, weekly update, but spend the time where you have the FaceTime with your boss and you're talking about how you're adding value to the organization, and again, listening. I would keep that a more focused discussion, and then separate out the other piece. So.
Unless anybody has anything burning, Brianna?
This is for everyone. Just kind of from your classes when you were here in the communication management program, any class, what's something that you learned in any one of those classes, maybe Dr. Weintraub's class, that you still...
The most important class.
The most important class, that you still that's very impactful and that you still use today in your job.
That's asking a lot of the people who graduated 10 years ago, but we'll give it a try.
Just anything, just that key thing that you still use.
And for those of you who weren't in comm management, from the programs that you were in.
Right. I'll jump in. And I'm not saying this because you're here.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm really not. But it is really learning how to think strategically, especially in businesses which are changing constantly. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have said I work for a radio company. I absolutely do not work for a radio company anymore. We do live events, digital, we're a multi-platform company now in the multimedia space. Radio happens to be one of the components. So being able to think strategically and think about, why am I making this decision? How is it going to move the needle? How will it propel my product or my show or whatever I'm working on? So I think it's about making thoughtful decisions. That's what it pairs down to, is making really thoughtful decisions, because I do think that separates people in the workplace, and it's being thoughtful, is asking the right questions, as was stated earlier, and it separates leaders from followers. And that's very important, because you want to be a leader, right?
Right.
So that's part of it.
Erin, anything you want to add to that?
I would say persuasion, as mentioned earlier, but I think what Claudine, you mentioned was being a strategic thinker, because I used to work in the office downstairs at Annenberg for the master's department, at the admissions office, and there was the strategic public relations course, and I was like, what is that? But I think starting to work, I understand what it is without realizing it had a master's program. But I think, just applying it to my job, we have exhibitions that come through. It's a museum. And one of the great things about LACMA is that it's an encyclopedic museum, meaning that we have work from the Paleolithic times to today. There are artists in the museum that are producing work that we show at the museum. But each of these exhibitions have an audience, right? It's going to have somebody interested in it or not. But you're not going to pitch an exhibition widely to everyone, not the same exhibition to the same people. For example, we had a kimono for a modern age exhibition. So kimono is not going to get pitched the same way an African show will get pitched. Mm-hmm. It'll be different. So I think thinking strategically and thinking, I can reach out to my Japanese contacts, I can reach out to my fashion contacts, I can reach out to my arts contacts. How do you tailor a pitch specifically to an exhibition, and looking at it kind of in that unique lens is being a strategic thinker. And I think that it's easy to kind of just say, I'll just blast this thing widely, this press release that I write, and then everyone will just get the information. But that might not be the most effective route. So I think what you're learning in your classes now, how to create a strategy for whatever it is you're promoting, is essential, I think, to the success of you in your business.
You do that?
I work in client services, and this is a question that I learned to ask in Dr. Weintraub's class. I ask it of my bosses, of my client, of everybody. What does success look like to you?
Yes.
That is a question.
Write that down.
I love that question. It gives you a lot of it gives you more than just that answer. It doesn't just tell you what they think success is. Mm-hmm. It tells you what they've missed, what they're not seeing, where you can add value add, because maybe there's a part of that success you see that they don't. It gives you a sense of what their expectations are, and whether you need to have a really honest conversation with them about whether that success is realistic or not. I don't think that it's really valuable to go to a client and tell them, yes, we can give you whatever you want. Sometimes they want the wrong thing, and it's your job to professionally and smartly tell them you want the wrong thing. And so being able to ask, concretely tell me, if this was a ravaging success, what does that mean to you? And then working backward from that.
Heather?
I think all the work that we did in comm management around organizational change has been hugely valuable for me in my career. Organizations change all the time. Structures change. You expand, you contract, leaders change. The ability to be able to help leaders navigate change, help transform a culture, help you take any change, even change a benefits offering. The tools that you learn in comm management are so valuable. The visibility that leaders need to have, the way that they communicate difficult news to employees, and as a communications partner, being able to help them do that, it's been incredibly valuable to me, and all the fun books that we read about.
See?
Too.
Eric?
So, I think one class that I took in my time at Annenberg that was really impactful for me was Transmedia Entertainment with Henry Jenkins. And one of the I mean, there's a lot of things I learned from Henry, and I fell in love with transmedia. But the thing I think that is especially valuable for communications management professionals going forward is look at the digital landscape, look at the platforms that you have available to you to get your message out. See, what are the specific qualities of each platform, which platforms can I use synergistically or that can work together well, like for live events, Twitter and Instagram are kind of where it's going if you are doing a runway show or it's a red carpet event. And just think strategically about how you're going to deploy your information on these digital platforms and how the audience is going to consume that information and how that contributes to building a bigger kind of brand for your companies.
I'm going to take one last question, and you raised your hand, so you get it.
Yes. Each of you represent some form of diversity, so I just wanted to know, how did you overcome diversity in your role, whether it was you being a woman producer for a really big company, or you being Asian, or whatever your ethnic background. How did you guys overcome that?
Eric, for you being a man in communication.
True story. For me, it boils down to one thing. I've asked for every job that I've gotten. I've asked for every promotion that I've gotten. I've asked for every title change, every salary change, everything. No one's going to give it to you. You have to ask. You have to back it up with evidence as to why you deserve it, and be relentless with getting it done. That's how I overcame diversity. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I sit in a meeting where there are 70 men and 6 women. But you ask, and you keep asking, and you don't stop asking. And if you and I think that's a really important lesson. Nothing's ever going to just come. Like, it's very rare for things to just come. You've got to ask for it. For me, that's been the most important thing.
I couldn't agree more, and I work for a global manufacturing company, so we have very few women, although I'm so excited we just hired a new CFO, a woman from Carnival Cruise Line, so it's exciting to see women advancing into the higher ranks of our organization. But I can tell you, there's a little fact, it's very true, and something along the lines, if a woman is presented with an opportunity, she evaluates it, she looks at all of the criteria. If she doesn't have about 95% of it down, might pass on it for someone who's, more qualified. If a man, and again, this is just what the research shows, looks at that same opportunity and says, yeah, I could figure it out. I could do about 50% of this. I'm in. I got it. I'm the one for the job. Right. It's a really interesting kind of dynamic, and I see it play out a lot.
Remember, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Remember when Heather said that when she got the call from WellPoint, we need to do this intranet, and we've heard that you know how to do this, and she hadn't a clue
what an intranet was.
Her response was, "Sure,
I'm great at that.
I can do that." Yeah. And she's right about the research about men and women. But it's also true that for those of you who are perfectionists, for those of you who want to feel comfortable before you go forward with something, male or female, those are bad things. If you feel comfortable, you're not growing. You're probably doing the wrong stuff. So there should always be that little bit of discomfort, because that means you're stretching. And first you say yes, and then you figure out how to do it.
I read something, I saw a little meme on Twitter, and it said, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I thought, I love that. That's so.
You always want to be in the cheapest house on the best neighborhood. Eric, anything you would add to that?
Well, I mean, I'll start from one point, which is, I am a male. I have a very privileged advantage when it comes to certain sectors or jobs. It doesn't feel like I've had to overcome much adversity, but to look to other sectors of tech and entrepreneurship, especially with the recent developments with the Ellen Pao trial in Silicon Valley, there is a huge gap in the involvement of women in the tech industry and in startups. We see a lot of domination from white men, from Asian men, from old boys clubs, and I think it's really important, especially for women's, Latinos, African Americans, to do what we can to help change that. Because the fact is that venture capital companies are going to continue funding startups run by white men, by Asian men, by old boys clubs, and that's not necessarily going to reflect the diversity of our country and of our viewpoints. And I think that for moving forward, for a tech industry that we want diversity to be a core value, we need to see more women on these teams. We need to see more women involved in the tech industry, in social media, in digital, in entrepreneurships and startups, because evidence has shown us that when you have cross-functional teams that include women in major capacities, the team does better overall, the product does better overall, the company does better overall. And it's just been too long, and I really would like to see companies that reflect the diversity that is what we have in this country and around the world.
So, Uditha?
Yeah, I love this question. I particularly love this question because, as Dr. Weintraub mentioned, I went and lived in a tiny little town in Wyoming for 8 months, where I was maybe the only not white person in like a 50-mile radius. And where for the first 4.5 months that I worked there, no one could say my name correctly. No one could say my name correctly. And here's what I would say to you. You define who you are, not anybody else. You define what your strengths and weaknesses are, not anybody else. It's helpful to keep an eye out and keep an ear out for people who are invested in you, that are going to help you grow. But the things that you decide are your strengths are your strengths. I lived there. I was the only, like I said, I was the only not white person in a 50-mile radius. I was the only one who didn't know what fly fishing was. But those were my strengths. Those were things that allowed me to walk into a room and say, I can offer you a perspective that nobody else here can. Everybody else here is your echo chamber, and I'm not. I'm here to tell you things that you may not have seen or things that you may not have thought of. And that became an extraordinary value add that I brought into the room. And I'm still in touch with those folks, and they still come to me to think about things like that. So I think I really like the question, but I don't think you're overcoming anything. I think you're taking a step back and saying, what does who I am bring to the table? What do my unique experiences tell these folks that nobody else can tell them? And how can I feel strong and confident in offering that perspective and that opinion?
To end this, I want to say that I want to remind you all of something. If you're sitting in this room, it's because your field of study, your primary view of the world is what? Oh, please. Communication, yes. It's like, really? Okay. That was not intended to be a hard question. Uditha goes, I don't know the answer to that question.
This is my worldview. I don't know.
You are in communication. That means that the lens through which you look at the world is how people communicate, what people communicate, what you should have an immense ability to look, analyze, see what's missing, see what the strategic holes are, and bring that forward, because you've studied persuasion, you've studied communication strategy, you've studied change management, you've looked at these things, and you ought to be able to say, hey, yo, look at the hole in the middle of that table, I'm going to help fill it.
Right.
And so I want you in your classes, in the work that you do, in the interviews that you do, to remember that and bring that to the fore. And I want you to thank what was really a brilliant panel.